ranging from corporate to international exposure to politics and then finally to education. It's definitely something I personally am really keen to know more about.
With similar minded people, and education is something which is so close to my heart. It's something so important.
That's incredible, and also like I mean, that's an experience I think all girls can relate. Dressing up in your mom sari, being a teacher. So, hi everyone. We are very excited for this podcast today as we have a brilliant Miss Swati Yadav here with us, who is the current director of the Europe Group of Schools with more than 15 years of extensive and very varied experience, ranging from corporate to international exposure to politics and then finally to education. It's definitely something I personally am really keen to know more about, and I'm personally inspired about learning more about it as well. And I just love to invite you here to join in as candidly as you can with us. And how are you feeling about this podcast here today?
So definitely feeling great about it. It's always a great opportunity to get to connect with similar minded people. And education is something which is so close to my heart. It's something, so important for development of a country, for the development of any household. So it's something deeply more close to my heart. So I'm all excited to, speak with you, connect with you, get to, understand your podcast better and address any questions that you may have.
Perfect. So I would love to start with like a very favorite question of mine. Is that what did you want to be when you were a kid? What do you want to be when you grow up? And are you doing that today? And if not, what you're doing currently, is that something you're finding joy in? Is that something you're finding passion in?
So it's really funny that you asked that question because quite often I think about what I wanted to be when I would grow up. I think I grew up in a phase where this was a standard question where adults would come up to you and ask you कि बेटा बड़े थे क्या बनना है? And every time I would try to think about it, the one thing that I remember I told my father I wanted to do was become a teacher. And as a young girl, I used to do this. I would break my mom's sari, and I would just take her blackboard, and I would just start teaching my younger sibling. So today, so many years forward, fast forward. I think it's so exciting to be in the field of education. Today, when I look at the field of education in general in India, so as you must know, as India, we are the largest school system in the world. So it makes me feel extremely proud that we are part of a system that is growing, evolving, and nurturing the fastest school system in the world.
That's incredible, and also like I mean, that's an experience I think all girls can relate. Dressing up in your mom sari, being a teacher. I did not have younger siblings, so I used to teach my soft toys. So, but I would like to ask you something. So, when I was growing up, at least, so I come from a rather conservative background, and a lot of times, little girls were suggested that you should take up teaching as a job because it is more well fitted for a girl, right? More well fitted for women, as probably there were gender biases that existed, and I think they still exist today as well. Do you think you faced some of that in your childhood, and that is where the teaching interest was stemming from?
So I think I grew up in an environment which was unlike most of my female counterparts in the sense that I always say Bill, that I think my entire journey so far has been very much, derived from the empowerment that my father has given me. So since a young child, I don't remember any time that there was, it was ever called out that I'm a boy or I'm a girl or, whatever, and should choose this because you're a girl. You should choose a boy because you are such. So I have always taken the road less traveled for as long as I can remember. I was just 18 when I moved to the US and I studied there, which was not a lot of my decision, but my parents' decision. And even when I was working abroad, I worked in consulting, which is, barely, I think, around 10 to 12%, if I'm correct. I think that's just the number of females you would find. I remember when I would work in the US, in a developed country, in a developed city, I would find that almost on my entire floor, there would just be 4 to 5 females other than me. And it would be primarily males. So I personally have not led that kind of life where my gender has decided what I would or wouldn't do. However, running a organization which primarily is employing females, I would say we have a staff of 2,500 plus individuals, and of which more than 90 to 95% are females. Say it brings me a lot of joy in knowing that today I'm part of a group, part of an industry where primarily we are working with females, providing them a safe environment, providing them an environment which can nourish, nurture their individual households, and provide them a job opportunity that can eventually lead to financial stability in their households. So that gives me a huge sense of pride and a huge sense of joy.
That's incredible, and I think I'm very inspired to hear that. And I think it's only since the last decade or the last 15 years or so that the teachers in India have started taking their careers as something that they're not just doing because of what was told to them when they were young, right? So I see teachers today thinking about writing their own books or going forward and actually being serious about taking their teaching career internationally or getting micro credentials on board. And all of that is something, is a collective experience that teachers 15 years ago were not doing.
Right.
Because they always came, at least that's what my experience and observation has been, that at least 70% of teachers came into it as the profession as it being more comfortable, suited with also managing a household. And it gives me so much pleasure to be a part of the education industry at a point of time when that's not the case anymore. And thankfully to inspiring education leaders like yourself, us younger people are very, we have something to look up to, and also from a societal perspective, it is a huge validation for the gender roles that they have been put in, right? So you're a brilliant example of what happens when you don't put in gender roles on little girls, right? So that is incredibly inspiring. And on that really positive note, I just like to do a little icebreaker rapid fire session with you. What is the first thing that you do when you walk into school every morning?
So the first thing that I do when I walk into my branches is that first thing is that I decide what am I going to accomplish in the day. So regardless of it being a school or it being, because I've had this opportunity throughout my lifetime where I've had various roles that I have played. And the first thing that I do the moment I walk into any environment is I set the tone for the day and decide what am I going to accomplish during the day. There are days where there are only 24 hours in the day as every day, but there are so many things I want to accomplish. And my younger self would agree, when I used to be younger, I would try to accomplish a lot more than, what those 24 hours could entail. So now I'm learning to be kinder to myself and decide how much I can accomplish and hold myself accountable for only those 24 hours.
That's amazing. The next question is that what is one experience in your school, probably with the students or with the teachers, which has given you the maximum joy of being into the education space today?
So I love interacting with students. I think that is what gives me the maximum amount of joy. And when I'm on my school rounds, when I'm able to see the students read, when I'm able to see a grade 1, grade 2 student read, that gives me so much joy. Or if I'm interacting with students and they are able to, share their joy, I think that's what gives me the most, that satisfaction.
Aren't students scared of you?
I think it has changed. So earlier when I would go to my classrooms, I think they were a little bit hesitant. I wouldn't say scared, but a little bit hesitant to speak what they should speak or not. But now I think we have set the tone where they know that I'm a friendly a person in their classroom who just wants their growth. That's what I'm looking for end of the day. And now I see a lot more hand raisers to talk to me, and a lot more openness from students as well as from the educators, the team of educators that I lead. And that's the intent, honestly, with which I work. Not to tell them what to do, but to have a two-way conversation. Let them lead me so that I can lead them better.
Oh, that's nice. Do you like the rebellious, out of the box kids more, or do you like the rule following, sincere, studious kids more?
I think at the age that I am, at this age, I have developed a sense of liking for everything. So I love the diversity in individuals, and I think I do humbly believe that there is something to like in everyone. So I try to look for that, and I think that makes my job more enjoyable and every interaction more enjoyable.
That's interesting. So, what is one habit that you do personally that nobody knows?
So the first, I recently started this almost, I think, 2 years ago. So one thing I do is that I try to get up, wake up an hour, half an hour to 1 hour before the time I should wake up, and I spend that time with myself. So I have 3 kids at home, and a very demanding career. My husband also has a very demanding career himself, and it's very important to have me time, which I feel becomes very difficult on days with 3 kids and having everything that I do. So one thing that I do that I don't think that a lot of people know is that I'm awake those earlier hours of the day,
Okay.
just to try and catch up with myself and center myself from there.
That's very interesting, and that's also a very good habit that I try to do. But I don't sleep early, so that's tough. Next question is: if you could be at the position of, you could change anything you want in the education system of India today, what would be the one thing that you changed?
So I think a lot of good changes are coming. Like if we talk about this year, the education sector in India, we are roughly spending around 2.7 to 2.9% of the, let's say roughly 3% of the GDP goes into the education sector. And now the NEP is proposing somewhere around 6%, which is mostly what the developed countries are doing. So that would be a great change. Nothing happens without money. A good intent definitely is very much required, but without putting our money where our mouth is, things don't get achieved. So we need more money for sure for the education sector.
That's. I think I'll definitely second that. So, what is one leadership suggestion that you would give to the women that work in Europe to schools, or any women who's in the leadership role in education sector?
One thing particularly about my group, and I do speak about this a lot every time we have women conferences or any time we have, Teachers Day or any other, a platform where I get to interface with, our lovely team, is that you is one group where we promote from within a lot. So we are looking for our own people who can take on leadership. So I have seen so many people who used to work as educators, then they got promoted as coordinators, then they got promoted as headmistresses and vice principals and principals. And then we have individuals, because the group is almost 25 years old. So we have individuals who are, older in the organization than I am. It's been 10 years since I have joined the group, but there are people who have been in the group who are working with me today, who have been in the organization for more than 15, 16 years. So there is, again, reiterating the same fact that there is so much that I get to learn from them. And that really helps me lead my organization better.
Oh, that's great. So, I'd love to know how we shift from studying abroad to corporate abroad to coming back to India, and that way politics happened.
Yeah. So, studying abroad was a wonderful opportunity. I have only my parents to thank for that, because they had that vision at that time. So I grew up majorly in Gurgaon. And I remember when I was around 15 to 17, that years, in the years when I was 15 to 17 years of age, Gurgaon was not what it is today. So that was a very, progressive thinking of my parents to let their daughter go abroad and study, because that was definitely not the norm.
Absolutely.
So all the hats off to my parents that they showed that level of confidence in me to send me abroad to study. After studying, of course, my parents did want me to come back. I requested if I could stay there for a little bit longer, stick around for a little bit longer, pursue some jobs. This was also the time of 2010, which is, when I graduated, when US was going through a huge economic crisis. And I remember majority of the boys in my class, who we used to think are so much more intelligent than us girls, they didn't get any job in private office, and they were all, unfortunately, migrating back to India at that point. I remember that very time I discussed with my father that if I get a job that I want to pursue, can I stay a little bit longer? And it's again very progressive of my parents that they said yes. So I continued working. I was able to find a very good, employment as per my choice. So I worked in consulting. That's what I did for 3 years, and it was a wonderful time because even to this day, for people who have family businesses or they have children where they don't need the child to do a job, I would always suggest that they should work for someone else for at least 3 to 4 years, because this gives you so much exposure into the real world. I remember when I was just 13 or 14, which is when my parents had started the Eurogroup of schools, I would go to schools and there were just so many yes mans everywhere. Because I was the chairman's daughter, so everybody would just, say yes, yes, yes to everything. That's not real life exposure. If you want real life exposure, you have to deep dive into the reality of things. So those 3 years of consulting experience that I did prior to my MBA, I think that gave me very good exposure. Right after my 3 years, I finished my 3 years in consulting. That's when I started with my business. And even that was a wonderful experience. Again, even in MBA school, even in SC school, there were less than 10% of my cohort, which was females. It was primarily boys, and yet also white American boys. So diversity that USA talks about so much is not as prevalent. It's still it's still limited to 12 to 15%.
In NTAs, in at least the M7, it was gotten up to 40-45% now, which is a great thing to do. But even Indian MBA colleges struggle with that.
Right. So that's another thing, right? If you talk about women being employed in the workforce, so I remember, I think in 2017 or 18, I remember the stats was something like 20%. Now that employment has risen up to almost 40%. So that's a huge thing. On the other side, the difficult issue is this, that only 10 to 12% of the females are in the top management positions. So even though we are joining the workforce, let's say there are 100 females, earlier only 20 were joining the workforce, now 40 are joining the workforce, but still somewhere only 10 to 12 of them are
in the top level
positions. So that is still something that we have a long ways to go.
Absolutely, and we collectively bridged that, right? And so I got to know the why of working abroad or pursuing your education abroad. I want to understand the why behind your political career.
Right. So the why is very obvious. After I did my MBA, I had a great job again in consulting. I was making a good living that I could sustain living, in the US. At that point, I had this urge and this inkling to do something more than that. I think till my post MBA employment, I think I had everything laid out. सब कुछ स्टेप 1, स्टेप 2, स्टेप 3, स्टेप 4 था. और जब वो आप लास्ट स्टेप तक पहुंच गए हो और आप अच्छा अर्न कर रहे हो, everything is settled, you are stable. Now there was this need that what next? What next? And I definitely felt the need that now when I'm at this point, I should give back to my community, to women in general. That's something that's always been, something very close to my heart. That I have seen the struggles that women face. Women of different economic backgrounds, women coming from different families, women from different...
Specifically in the area surrounding Haryana, right? So Haryana is known for something like that, and a very unfortunate event that we just saw happened in Gurgaon itself, where the tennis player was a girl who was, brutally assumingly murdered by her dad. So there are so many parallels to draw here, right? And as a part of the system of the education, specifically in Gurgaon as well, I think there's a lot that you and the position that you hold can bring about to make sure we don't have more cases like that. So I think your reason for giving back to the society, and especially for the women back here in India, is something that is more than needed. Right. So yeah, I would just love to know how did you make that happen and how politics was your calling.
So I think now with social media, we just get to know more about it.
Okay.
Right? I think this honor killing, female infanticide, this has been happening in Gurgaon, in Haryana. I mean, Gurgaon is still like the most creme de la creme of Haryana. Right? So as I was saying earlier, the years when I was growing up, when I was 15 or 17, this was very common. This was very common. We used to hear about it. It was not on, social media, because social media did not exist at that point. But it used to be very common. We used to hear about it. So, the kind of progressiveness that my parents had shown at that time, when on the other side,
your peers were doing something absolutely opposite of that.
Exactly. So at that time, when I got that opportunity, I just felt like I owed it to myself to give back. And that is not a one-person job. Even when I joined politics and the amount of impact that you're able to make, it's so limited, as I was interacting with, women leadership from all over Haryana. And that is still so limited. If you talk about the parliament, there are such few women still who are in parliament, right? And even when we see on social media the kind of comments that are made, it's made about what are they wearing, what is their jewelry like, what is their, this and that, and it's a female and she's aggressive, and I keep seeing all these Jaya Bachchan,
right,
that keep becoming.
Why can't she be aggressive? I mean, at the same time, if a male is, being very serious and be very, focused and not doing anything whimsical of nature, he's generally more respected. He's generally seen as a, intimidating position of power and somebody who holds authority. But as soon as a woman is not pleasing other people, it becomes a problem. So that is definitely something even I have personally observed. And that is also a backlash that even our finance minister faces. Right. And the policies are really, assumed to be worse than they are. Also because of that bias that is in there.
And let's talk of the budget and more talk of her sari.
Right. That's definitely the case. And also something that I've personally observed in Haryana, and not in the parliament, but in the lower levels of the, the political system. A lot of times, the women who also are in the position of responsibility or leadership are just mere puppets. So a lot of times it is their family behind the scenes who are actually, making it happen, who are pulling the strings from behind. So that is also a barrier that need to be, bridged, and that can only happen when those women understand that, we need to also speak up. We need to have that position of power. If we have it, we need to utilize it better. So I think very well needed, like I mentioned, that I just love to know how that, journey shaped your political career. It started from an impact for women, and where is you?
So I remember I came back from the US, and that's when, I joined Dushyant Chaudhary. He was looking for a team of, young people and young thought leaders to contest elections. So that's when I contested the Member of Parliament election. That was in 2019. My father had already been active. He contested the Legislative Assembly elections in 2014, and he had done really well. So with that, the party did give me a chance to contest, and I had somewhere around 1.5 lakh votes. That's what I was able to secure. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience because I think on the grounds I got to learn so much. The journey did not stop there. Continue to move on with that, and I switched parties. I moved to BJP because I felt that was more aligned with what I was waiting for as somebody who wanted to make a change. And with BJP, I had several state level and positions with the party, and I'm just trying to make more of an impact with that.
Okay, that's interesting. So, how did now I would want to understand the why behind not completely focusing on the political career, but coming back to your, education business that we have here. So, how did that switch happen, and why did you not decide to go forward in the field of politics only?
So I think both domains, they have their own impact. Today, I feel that as an individual, I am able to make a better impact with education, in terms of achieving the goals that I have for myself. With education than with politics. Because with politics, I think there is a lot of talk about wanting the youth to join politics, wanting the women to join politics. But those type of opportunities, they don't exist. So they are still existing for somebody's wife, somebody's daughter, but not really. Those opportunities are slim and rare to find. Right, I do see hope in the future, because definitely we are talking about having reservations for women to contest, and I think that will definitely bring some kind of diversity into the data pool that we have. Having said that, education is somewhere, as I said, I have 2,500 employees, I have 15 branches, so there is a bigger impact that I am able to make. I have direct control over that, and I'm able to drive a better, bigger impact with that. So I've not turned off the team on politics. Yes, if there is any opportunity for me in the future, I would definitely want to be aligned and give back to the community. That's something that as a family we are, very much pro on doing. I do have an NGO of in my family that we run as well. And with that, we are continuously, year after year, doing the good work, be that we getting scholarships or helping out the needy and the poor. So that's something that we are doing throughout the year. So it's all different ways of giving back.
That's incredible. So as we step into the education career of yours, I would love to know, what do you feel is your current is something that's holding you back currently to do more in education, or to frame it in other words, what do you think is something as your weakness as a education leader in the Indian education space, right?
Okay. So as somebody who has come from consulting background, or somebody who worked in politics, I feel I am one of those type of people who is looking for a quick change. I think education, everything moves a little bit slower.
Very slowly.
Very slowly. So that's something that I have learned over the years, to have patience, more patience, and I think that's what something that I've been learning over the years, to have more and more, because education is definitely not one of these fields where things drastically improve. It takes time. It takes a lot of planning and process behind a perfect execution.
Interesting. So this is a question that only specifically you can answer. We both very inclined towards empowering women and giving back to the women society, and also being in the education space where you're actually shaping the careers of so many young women. What some gender biases or some roles that are still being maybe subconsciously or consciously or subtly still being enforced on little girls as we grow up. Have you observed something like that in young girls and the education today?
So I think not so much anymore. Definitely, I will say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we used to see that in the enrollment rates in our school, or even in the entire state, or in certain districts, we would see that women would be enrolled lesser in schools, less females would be enrolled, and there would be higher male enrollment ratio. But we're not seeing that anymore. In fact, I'm very surprised to see, I'm not surprised, happily surprised to see that parents are now promoting their girls who are academically, if they are academically stronger, they're promoting their girls more than the boys. If you look at the results, be that the Eurogroup or be that, all over Haryana, you will definitely see that women students, female students, they are getting better results in grade 10 or 12. So that is something that the parents are acknowledging. कई parents हमारे पास आते हैं, बोलते हैं कि मेरा बेटा नहीं पढ़ता है इतना, पर बेटी पढ़ती है. तो आप इसको जो है वो ज्यादा इसके मेहनत करो.
I think that's very true, and we all remember that the kid is, even I was a studious kid and my brother was not. So that was always the case. But I read something that completely changed my perspective on that. So why females or little young women are more inclined towards studying and getting better grades is of course, they are naturally less distracted. That is definitely something there. But there's a conditioning, be it subconsciously or consciously, that they have to prove the opportunity that they've got. And that is something I think even you would agree, given that you have grown up in Haryana. A lot of times it is held above the women's or the girls' head that you've been given this, we could have not let you study, or we've given you this opportunity. Right. And that is not the condition that the boys have. Right. So they are pressurized rather to make their careers, earn as much as possible, do something. And women are, or little young girls are said that, we are giving you this opportunity, so you better not misuse it, right? So that is, which I feel is, something of a traumatic experience of young girls that leads them to be, more productive in terms of academics, so that they always prove the opportunities that they've gotten. And today when I see, so we work with a lot of schools where we promote entrepreneurship, boot camps for women and for, female children who are studying in schools. And I find it so interesting and so happy that, more and more women now in schools are looking at next gen careers like probably entrepreneurship or content creation and not focusing on only academics, right? Mm-hmm. So earlier the focus on academics did not necessarily come from their interests. Mm-hmm. It used to come from having to prove it, not having to, give the satisfaction to their parents that they have done a good job by letting them pursue this. Like I'm talking about 10 years ago. But now things have changed to an extent that, women are actively looking at, I want to be an entrepreneur when I grow up and not follow only an academic career. And I think that is a change that we in India drastically need, right?
Seeing also.
Right, yeah, we're seeing it also. So we need more women entrepreneurs, and the best way to do is to catch them early at the school level, right? Mm-hmm. If they'll grow up with that mentality, it is also a very viable career option that we could choose when we grow up. I think it could make all the difference. And thankfully, I feel very grateful to be a small part of this process and the change, right? So I just love to know from your end, what are your viewpoints on beyond academics in your schools, and how do you make sure it is actually fostered?
So I think the first point that you raised, that proving yourself never stops. I think with women, in my experience, when I've been working for over 15 years, I started working, very early on in my life. And one thing I've experienced is that I have come across two types of people who are continuously okay with proving themselves, no questions asked. One is young people. You hire them young, they will just keep trying to prove themselves, Secondly are women. Women can be 40, women can be 50, women can be 60. She has this need to consistently prove herself. And that's because the society has fed it to her. कि तुम्हें ये opportunity मिला, हमें नहीं मिला. अब तुम्हें ये opportunity. So it doesn't stop with school. It never stops. That's what, even with me working for so many years, I feel like at this age also, I'm having to prove myself again and again and again. That's the challenge of just being a woman in, I think, not just in India, globally.
Oh, that's very true. And that's also where the people pleasing comes from.
Yes.
And so that when we have some Jaya Bachchan,
other issues.
Right. And so that when we see some Jaya Bachchan not following that path, all the males are there. Very offended by that. So with that really inspiring answer from yours and the discussion that we had, we end this segment.
And thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. It was great connecting with you and all these questions. It felt like a two-way conversation. It was wonderful.